Morphological versus syntactic inflection. We begin by distinguishing between two applications of the word inflection, one found chiefly in the morphological literature and the other in the syntactic literature. So, we are talking about inflection that belongs to morphology and inflection that belongs to syntax. For a morphologist, the presence of inflectional morphology is in a language depends on the existence of multiple forms of a lexeme. So, a morphologist admits an inflection when there are different forms of the word. For example, boy, boys, boyish, right? Play, playing, played, right? So, these are different forms. So, for morphologists, the presence of these inflection is the presence of different word forms. If a lexeme has only one form, then there can be no morphological inflection. For example, let's take sheep. It does not have any form, but obviously we do take it as zero form, zero morpheme in English. But just to give you an example, so it has no morphological inflection. In certain languages, there is only one form of the word. So, it means that it does not have any morphological inflection. So, then it has to agree with certain other words, components of the language in a syntax. So, what happens in that case? In syntax, there is no such requirement, right? There is no such requirement whether there are inflections or there are no inflections. Chinese lexemes have only one form, abstracting away from phonological determined alternation, mostly changes in tone. So, in Chinese, it is the tone that brings different meaning to the words, right? No inflection is added, and even if any inflection is added, that is very minute, right? So, while Chinese has a few clitics or particles or clitics, like for example, they do not stand alone. For example, if I say am to go, the m sound, which is the weak form of am, is a clitic form in English. So, while Chinese has a few clitics or particles, including one that expresses past tense, these are generally not considered affixes. So, the particles added to the verb to give the sense of past tense are not considered affixes. The same is true of Vietnamese, though the two languages are unrelated. Chinese language belong to Sino-Tibetan language group of family. For the morphologists, therefore, these two languages have no inflection, but obviously they work on the syntax. From a syntactician's point of view, whether or not Chinese and Vietnamese have inflections is an entirely different matter. So, they don't bother whether there are inflections or not. Even if a language does not express a particular notion such as number or case, it is typically assumed to be present in the syntax. So, if for example, any language does not have a certain singular suffix with a noun and to agree with a singular verb, it does not have any suffix, it does not matter. It is there in the mind that we are making an agreement of the singular noun with the singular verb and plural noun with the plural verb. Likewise, a syntactician may argue that a verb always agrees with its subject in an abstract sense. This is what we said, that whether there is any inflection or not, verb agrees in an abstract way. There is some understanding that subject is singular or plural, so the verb will be singular and plural, and similarly the other features. This abstract agreement is considered just as real in Chinese, where the verb form never depends on its subject. Like English, the verb form has to agree with its subject. If the subject is third person, it has to be singular. If the subject is plural, it has to be plural. In Russian, where the form of the verb changes depending on the person, first, second, third, and number, singular or plural of the words. So contrary to the Chinese, we have a language, Russian, in which the verb agrees according to the first person, second person, and third person. And then first person, it is I and we, you and you, second person, and third person, singular, plural. So it has too many affixes. In some, morphological inflection is realized overtly, openly, where syntactic inflection may or may not be, as in the case of the Chinese language. The existence of zero allomorphs does not contradict this definition of morphological inflection, because we have discussed that zero morpheme is used or considered or thought of when there are other morphemes, other plural morphemes. So sheep has a zero morpheme because it has a plural morpheme that is with boys. Zero morphemes is contrasted with non-zero allomorphs. In other words, in some instances, the inflectional feature encoded by the zero allomorph is realized overtly, as in the case of English. Another difference between the morphological and syntactic usage of the term inflection is that morphologists speak of inflection only when dealing with bound forms. We know that s, ed, t, ish or other inflections do not stand on their own. They have to be attached with some words, right? So they are bound forms. The reason for this is clear inflection informally, as is a banding of a lexeme. English has a syntactic category of modals or modal auxiliaries. This is syntactic category of the inflections. What modal or auxiliary do, used to accompany other verbs to indicate that the action or state described by a sentence is something other than simple action. For example, he is going. Going is simply expressing a simple action. I'm going to go, or I am to go. Now we have added an auxiliary or a modal verb which gives another meaning. I'm to go maybe gives my preference, subject's preference, or may give my planning. So if we substitute other modals for might, for example, the degree of uncertainty changes somewhat with each substitution. Alicia might go to the birthday party isn't a simple fact, or like Alicia is going to a party. There is might go, there is an element of certainty. He may or may not go. So Alicia may go to birthday party. There is less probability. Alicia can go to, so there may be ability to go, could go, past is her past reference of ability, must go, it's a strong obligation. So Alicia should go, would go, or will go. All these modal auxiliaries gives different state of the affair of the subject. It tells us the certain attitude of the speaker instead of simply giving us facts about the subject. Should we consider these modals to be morphological inflection? This is the question. No, not at all. These are not morphological inflections. In order to be classified as morphological inflection, a syntactic category must be expressed through bound morphs. So morphological inflections are bound, as I just give you some example, and can, could, they are not bound forms. In the case of English modals, we are not dealing with bound forms, but rather with separate words. So I can go, we can count 1, I can, 2, go, 3 words. Again, syntacticians differ from morphologists on this point. Most would treat auxiliaries as part of their inflectional system of a language. Morphologists are not denying the validity of this treatment, only distinguishing the full word modals, syntactic inflections from morphological inflections. Difference between morphological and syntactic inflection we can sum up. Morphological inflection is realized overtly. Syntactic inflection may or may not be overt. In order to be classified as morphological inflection, morphosyntactic properties must be expressed by bound morphs or other morphological means, ablaut, suppletions. Syntactic inflection, on the other hand, may be realized by 3 free forms, auxiliary and modals, etc. So we can conclude that there is a difference between morphological inflection and syntactic inflections. They are 2 different things.